Okay, so something that I get asked often is, what about prayer? Do I still pray? And the answer is, yeah, but it's not like the old, like traditional style of prayer. And there was a time where I completely stopped praying because when I went from the old, like fundamentalist version of God, where God is some kind of separate, distant deity, like up in the heavens, that paradigm, when I went from that paradigm to non-duality, when I started having mystical experiences and I realized that separation is an illusion and all is one and everything is God, but at the same time, as the mystics would say, God is everything and nothing. So all things, all of matter, all of the forces of the universe are arising from the infinite awareness, from pure consciousness, from source, whatever you want to call it. Like, to me, or like in my journey, I went from God being a being to being itself. God was a deity that existed to the infinite source of all life, where separation is impossible because everything is one. And this is, I've shared this so many times, this is it's probably not one of the most profound shift I've had in my life as far as viewing reality and seeing it all as one. And this came from, like I said, my own mystical experiences. But after I had these experiences, I took a lot of time to study and research some of the different Eastern mystical traditions, because someone told me, like, hey, that like the experiences you're having, people have been having experiences like that in the East forever, for thousands of years. And I was like, yeah, I figured, because I've always been someone who's been skeptical of experiences and visions and like things like that, miracles, because to me it's like if only one person has ever had some kind of experience and now they're saying that this is the way it is, like I've never been one to just believe someone like that, so if someone starts having mystical experiences and these types of experiences have been experienced by people for a long time, and people have been writing about it for centuries or thousands of years, whatever it is, like, to me, that's like, okay, then I can work with that, because you're not the only one saying that this is what reality is. Everything is one, separation is an illusion. No, this is something that, other people have experienced and have said. It just makes more sense to me to go that approach with the experience backed by many years and ancient writings that actually verify that this is something that other people have been experiencing. So anyway, like I said, I started to have the mystical experiences. I started to realize all is one. God is not a being, but being itself, infinite awareness, all of matter, all of the forces in the universe are arising from this infinite source of pure energy, which you can call it whatever you want. God, the divine, Brahman, the ultimate. There's so many different names and concepts, but ultimately, like, any language or any name that the finite mind can come up with to try to like fully grasp or encapsulate God, or whatever you want to call it, like all the names, all the different labels and boxes, they fall short, because how can the finite mind, think about this, how can the finite mind fully grasp that which is infinite? Can't, right? So that's why I always say this, but in Zen Buddhism, they say that all of our concepts and names and ideas and beliefs about the ultimate, about quote unquote God, all of that is just the finger pointing to the moon. It's not the moon. We worship the finger because we think, oh, our name or our belief structure or our theology or our philosophy, like this is it. This is the way. And it's not. They're all just pointers to that which is beyond any kind of finite conceptualization. All right. So, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, prayer. This is what the video is about, prayer. I'm sitting here talking. Anyway, so prayer. So yeah, so when you start to shift your perspective on God, and God becomes not a being, but being itself, the ground of being, pure consciousness, and you realize you're not separate from God. Like when I had one of my first mystical experiences, I remember what was so moving about the experience was I was experiencing what I would call infinite unconditional love. However, this experience, the encounter of this infinite unconditional love, was like, the love was not an external force that was coming upon me. It was something that I knew deep down on an intuitive level. I knew that this infinite unconditional love that was way beyond my finite mind was something that I fundamentally am. And so it was coming from within me, and it was expanding beyond my body, beyond my mind, beyond my ego, beyond all my different constructs and identities and roles and attachments and labels, beyond all the stuff. This presence, this reality was, at the deepest level, it was me. And when I'm saying me, I'm not talking about the small self. I'm not talking about the egoic separate self. There's a lot of confusion around language when we're talking about me and the true self and like I, because it really depends on who you're talking to. Like if you're talking to someone in the West, like someone who was brought up like in one of the Western traditions, like for example, Christianity, and they've had this perception of God as being something separate from humanity or whatever. If you're talking to someone like that and you start saying that you are God or we are all God, they're going to hear you and they're going to think you're crazy, because for them, God is this mega being who is sitting up on a throne somewhere, who's judging and who's going to ultimately decide who gets to go to heaven and who's saved, who's not saved, all of that stuff. That narrative of God. If someone hears you saying that you are God, they're gonna, in their minds, they're thinking, oh, God, the big man upstairs. They're gonna equate that with what you're saying, and they're gonna think that you're nuts. So, but if you say, I am God, or I realize that I am God, to a Hindu mystic, they're going to be like, it's about time. Like, you're just now understanding that. You're just now getting it. So that's why I say it depends on who you're saying it to. But ultimately, the Hindu mystic or the Buddhist or the Taoist, like when they don't even use the word God, but for them, the ultimate is not something. It's not an object that's like somewhere out in space or somewhere out there up in heaven, and the place is like, way far out from this realm, from the earth. For them, God, like I keep saying, is not a presence, but presence itself. It's beingness. It's the ground of being, as Paul Tillich said. So when they hear you say, I am God, or I am one with God, they know that you're not talking about the egoic self, the sense of being a finite being, the sense of being, whatever the mental construct is coming up with. It's the whole, like, who you think you are. Like they know that what you're saying is coming from the true self, capital T, capital S, which is who you really are. The ego is who you think you are. It's a mental construct. It's a sense of separateness. The true self is who you really are. It's ultimate reality. It's that infinite awareness that's aware of awareness. That is pure I amness, pure beingness, and it's fundamentally one. So the I amness, is something that it's not like they're separate I ams or whatever. There's not separate, like there's no separation on that level. The I am is one. My presence of I am is the same presence of I am that you have and that everyone has. So again, on that deeper level, you've got all these different waves, and the waves of the ocean appear to be separate, but they're not. All of the waves are the ocean. And so that's just a way of trying to frame it, trying to think about it. But anyway, so when I had this realization of I am divine, or I am one with God, and again, this was on the level of the true self of consciousness, pure consciousness, one of the first things that came to mind after that, because the other thing is this: when you have a mystical experience, the mind is always going to try to like interpret it and like make sense of it and say, well, wait a second, like what you actually experienced was this and that, and it's using all this like old conditioning and programming to make sense of some kind of, profound experience of the infinite that you just had. So again, going back to the mind, the analytical thinking mind being finite, trying to make sense of that which is infinite, it just doesn't work. So that's why a lot of times, like, if you have a mystical experience, even during the experience or after the experience, it's good to just like leave the mind out of it and know that no matter what, your mind is going to try to like interpret it and like put words to it and put it in a box, and just let go of that attachment of like having to go down that path of the finite mind trying to, encapsulate a profound mystical experience. Just like let that go, because that's where I was getting stuck. I think for a while I was trying to like understand my experiences of oneness, which ultimately transcend the finite mind, from the level of my finite mind. And that's honestly why I don't even like talking about mystical experiences or like trying to describe them, because ultimately I don't have words for it. I can't, like, I know what I experienced, and I know that when I was experiencing what I experienced, it was beyond anything I could think or imagine or talk about. So I leave it at that. That's my way of honoring the experience and having reverence for it, because that is a sacred experience. A mystical experience is a sacred experience, and it's beyond words. It's just like, that's why a lot of the mystics have said that, like, silence is the language of God or something like that. That's also why a lot of the mystics don't even talk about their experiences in depth, or they're wise enough to know that the way they frame it up is going to be somewhat of, a way of explaining it, but ultimately, like, they know that their words and their stories about it, all of that is just the finger pointing to the moon. So going back to the reality of oneness and understanding God from a non-dual sense question, what does prayer look like now? Because that's like what people will say after they have these experiences. That's what I said. I was like, wait a second, like, do I pray to myself now? Like, now that I realize I am one with God, so who am I actually talking to? Who am I praying to? Am I trying to contact this deity? Wait, there is no more. I don't believe in that deity that's outside of myself, that's outside of creation, because God is infinite and nothing can be outside of God. Our being is God's being, all these profound realizations. And so I was like, well, so maybe I just don't pray anymore. And this is when I was like getting into meditation, So I was like, oh, all I need is meditation. Meditation is what enables me to have that direct experience of the divine. That's all I need. And that's all I want, is to keep experiencing this infinite, unconditional love that fundamentally is the essence of my being. I don't care about anything else, and everything else will work out. Right. Well, the thing was, there was still that like longing to pray, even like after I spent some time just doing purely meditation and having these profound experiences and like understanding, I felt like every time I'd have a mystical experience, I'd come back from the experience knowing on a deeper level how much this game, this matrix of separateness is an illusion. And I would have more experiential knowledge of the reality of oneness. So it was transforming me in that way. But I got to a point where I was like, yeah, but like, what about the whole prayer thing? I used to pray a lot. I used to like praying, and I used to feel like there were times where my prayers were actually working. And what I learned was that prayer from the reality of non-duality can still be a thing. It looks a lot different than the old paradigm of prayer that is coming from separation consciousness. And what I mean by this is when I really started to walk in the oneness, and I'm not saying that I'm always walking in the oneness, so don't hear what I'm not saying, because nobody in this earth school is always walking in unity consciousness. It's just not how this school is designed. We go back and forth, and even the ego, like the ego is something you include as you transcend the ego. You include it, and then from your higher self or from the true self, you live through your ego, you live through your human incarnation, and you balance. Look, this life, this human experience is all about balance and harmony and the flow. So that's important. But one of the things I noticed was I was hearing like other sages, not a lot, but a few of the other mystics and sages, they would talk about prayer, and they were starting to frame it in a way that it just seemed like it made more sense from this place of oneness. And so when you're praying from this place of oneness, it's actually very empowering, because you're recognizing that the divine presence, the divine energy, the life force energy is within you, and it is you. So you're praying from this place of being, and you're not trying to contact some kind of external force. And the way I started praying, let's say I was praying for someone, or I was praying for myself. And for example, like when I say praying for someone, maybe it's like I had a friend who was going through a hard time, and the old way I used to pray was I would try to contact the deity up in the sky, up in the heavens, and I'd say, God, so-and-so is going through this and that, and they really need your help. So can you please send down some of your grace and your mercy and your wisdom and your love and help them out? And I would just hope that somehow God would hear my prayer, and then you never know, maybe he would answer it. But honestly, most of the time when I would pray, I feel like growing up, like my prayers were only answered like 2% of the time. It was very rare. And then it was like, so because it was so rare that my prayers were answered, because I was praying a lot, I prayed all the time, not all the time, but as much as I felt like I needed to. But so when I would have a prayer be answered, my immediate response would be like, yeah, was that God, or was it a coincidence, because it was so rare. Anyway, and even like growing up, there was always that like intuition within me that was like, yeah, but like, what if God's not hearing my prayers? Like, I understand everyone around me, my spiritual leaders and my pastors and my parents, like they're all telling me pray, and God hears your prayers, but how do I know? I mean, I'm not actually talking to someone like I would talk to another human being, where there's an actual dialogue going on, and I'm like hearing the audible voice of this being. No, it's all a monologue, and I'm just hoping that God is, and I'm just believing, I'm going off of blind faith and just assuming that God is hearing me. But you never know, and that's why I always kind of had like that skepticism about the whole process of prayer. But going back to the example, so let's say, praying for someone, instead of like praying from separation consciousness, what I started doing, because I recognized that the divine power lives within me and that everything is divine and there is no separation, what I started doing was, when I would meditate, I started to actually combine my meditation practice with prayer. But the way I would do it was, I would get into a deep meditative state, and I would slow my brain waves down. So I'd get into like alpha or the theta brainwave state, where I was like in this dream-like state. And this is where the subconscious mind is accessible in the sense of like being reprogrammed. The door to the subconscious mind is wide open when you're in the theta brainwave state in meditation. So what I would do is I would start to, from this recognition that I am one with God, and that there is power within me, I would start to visualize the person I was praying for, and I would see them in my imagination. By the way, like, not enough, there's not enough people that talk about this, I feel like, but imagination is one of the most important divine qualities that we have. And I think for a lot of people, it's been written off as something that is like meaningless and just like woo-woo and just whatever, like a low-level thing, but it's actually like one of the most important divine qualities that we have, like I said, because it's where the power comes from. The power we have to create and manifest as divine beings, as being one with source. It's how that the flow flows through us. It's like that open door, it starts with that imagination. So anyway, I would be in the theta brainwave state in meditation. I would start to visualize and imagine that person being healthy and whole and strong, and whatever it is I was praying for, I would just see it as if it's something that was occurring right now. And what I would do, like before meditation, before I would even start meditating, is I would practice by thinking of a memory. I would think of something that actually happened in my life, and I would like view it, or I would really sense what it feels like to zoom in my awareness on a memory. Okay, what that memory, like, just the essence of the memory, And the reason I would do this is because when I would start meditating and I would get into the theta brainwave state and I would start to visualize whatever it is I wanted to experience, either for myself or for someone else, which is what I'm calling prayer right now, I would see it not only as something that was a current reality, but I would almost view it as something that already happened. So I would treat it like a memory, and I would really feel what it would be like as to view that thing, to sense that thing as if it's already done, as if it's the prayers answered. And I mean, believe it or not, this is something that Jesus actually talked about when he talked about prayer in Mark 11:24. He said, whenever you pray, believe you have received it and it will be yours. So the believing that you already have it, or that it's already a done deal, is, I think, an important component to this whole process of prayer from the reality of oneness, because the reality of oneness is what it is. And so the separation consciousness clouds us from like seeing what is and being, and so it's like from this reality of oneness, there's wholeness. That's what's possible, and what we're experiencing through our five senses and through our finite minds isn't reality. We think it's reality. We think that this is the ultimate. We think that this is like the way things definitely are, but it's all perception. It's all going through the filter of the finite mind. And it's almost like there's the principle of mentalism. Everything is mind, everything is consciousness. So we can change the external world, or, our perception of it at least, which there's always a ripple effect, and there will be change in all these different aspects of our lives when we start to embody a new energy or a new perspective, because it's all being created by the mind. And when I say mind there, I don't mean the finite mind. I mean the pure infinite consciousness. I mean the big mind, or whatever you want to call it. There's another name for it, but I don't remember, as far as mind being equated to infinite awareness or source consciousness instead of the finite mind. But anyway, so it's like when this all starts to happen, and you start to bring wholeness and unity into the situation that seems fragmented, that seems like there's something off, then this, believe it or not, this vibrational frequency that we're holding in the theta brainwave state when we're in deep meditation, and we're sending the energies of love and peace and joy and wholeness and all the good stuff towards this person or towards this situation, we are creating a new possibility and a new whatever in the field, and the field will start to respond to that in the outer world. So and this is something I didn't believe in for a while, and I've heard people talk about this, but I was like, yeah, I don't know about all that. But then I started trying it, and I experienced it a few times, and it seemed like, again, like this method, this approach to prayer, if you even want to call it that, as far as praying for yourself or praying for other people, or just like situations, it seemed like there was something to that, And it seemed like it just felt right. It felt like, yeah, like of course I have the power to send these positive frequencies out into the world by visualizing, by seeing it a certain way within my own inner being. And the connection was there, the oneness was there. And I think that's that awareness, that perception of it is what actually enables the thing to unfold. So that's how I pray from oneness, at least. I'm not seeking or contacting some kind of divine intervention outside of myself. I'm allowing the divine energy within me to do what it does, to flow with love, with peace, with joy, with gratitude, with abundance. And in my mind or in my imagination, while I'm in the deep meditative states, I think that's when the subconscious mind can take those things. And then the way the subconscious mind works is once it starts to be reprogrammed, then, or like even if you're like believing for something or praying for someone, the subconscious mind takes that and then it starts to like create those situations and those opportunities and those results in what we're perceiving to be our external world and the different things we're praying for. However, I say all of that to say, the other thing I've learned is that process of prayer is, like I said, very powerful. There's something profound and divine to it, and I just prefer to, obviously from the reality of non-duality, like it makes more sense to pray that way, knowing that everything is interconnected. And we could get into quantum physics. And so again, if you are like really putting your focus and energy and attention towards someone or something in a deep meditative state, you are sending frequencies to that person, positive or negative. And that's how prayer can work. That's how the person can actually experience what you're wanting them to experience. So like, the saying, I'm sending you my love, that old saying, like, yeah, there's actually something to that. You can actually harness and really embody love for someone or peace or whatever it is and send that to them through your vibrational frequencies. But what I wanted to say was this, like the other thing I've learned is that there are certain things that we experience in life that no matter how much we pray or no matter how much we meditate and visualize and do all this stuff, like you're not going to change that situation. There are certain things that we have chosen to go through and experience, and those things are part of our human experience. They're part of the curriculum that we signed up for. It's part of the soul's evolution. There's no getting around it. And this is something that, even Ramana Maharshi talked about. So if something is destined to happen, it will happen. And there's nothing you can do to change it. And this is where we have to practice and embody acceptance and surrender, because if we try to like attach ourselves to that thing that is the way it is, and what I'm saying is like, don't not pray for something because you're using the excuse of, oh, this is just fate, or this is the way things are, and this is the destiny of whatever, and so I'm just not even going to pray. No, my approach is I pray for everything, but when the prayer doesn't seem to change or when the manifestation doesn't happen, it's like, you know what? I'm going to surrender that. I'm going to trust the universe. I'm going to trust Source. I'm going to trust God, and just believe that whatever that thing is, whatever is happening, I'm not going to get into the why, and I'm just going to like trust that this is part of, my journey or someone else's journey, and I'm going to leave that up to the universe or Source to unfold whatever it is in that person's life or in my life that needs to be unfolded. And I'm going to know from that deeper intuitive level that there are some things, like I'm saying, that doesn't matter like what you try to do. Those things are meant to be. They're meant to happen. And in our finite minds, we can't fully grasp that. We can't understand because we're in the game. We're playing the game. We're like living out these human incarnations. And if we could understand and know, then, the why behind every little thing that happens and why certain things don't happen and all the stuff, then what would be the point of this temporary human experience? That's not how this matrix, or that's not how this school works. We incarnate and we totally forget who we really are and what the bigger picture is on the other side, so that we can actually take the curriculum that we signed up for honestly, and so that we can legitimately learn and have these experiences and like be human. If we knew all the stuff, if we had all the answers in our finite minds, then we couldn't actually fully be human and experience the spectrum of emotions that come with living in a world that's unpredictable, that comes with living in a world that's full of uncertainty and mystery. Like, that is part of being human. It's going back and forth with these different emotions and experiences, and feeling the highs and feeling the lows genuinely. So that's, the veil has to be in place to a degree as long as you're in an earth suit. But when you transcend the earth suit, or I'll say it this way, when the body leaves you, when the body stops working and moves on, and you, the true self, infinite consciousness, simply are. So like, there is no beginning, there is no ending, there is no birth, there is no death. The body dies, the body is born, but you, the awareness, are eternal beyond, like I said, birth and death. And so when this channel, when this 3D earth realm, when this goes away from the experience of awareness, of your awareness, then you understand, you see. And that's why, like, a lot of people, when they have near-death experiences, they talk about having a life review. And during the life review, there's a lot of understanding from the level of the higher self, from the higher mind on the other side. There's a lot of understanding and clarity as to why certain things happened during the incarnation, and the lessons that were meant to be learned, and the different things, the karmic stuff that had to be worked out. So on that channel, when the awareness is expanded and heightened, and you can see what's going on from the bigger picture, then yeah, you understand why some things had to go the way they went. And there's peace there. Like, you're not bitter and angry and, oh, if I just would have. No, you understand that this is the way the path was. This is the way the Dharma was unfolding. The karma was unfolding, and they were going together. And you understand the whole orchestra of the human experience to a degree when you're on the other side, when you're on the astral plane. So, yeah, like I said, it's just like understanding this. I think it doesn't mean, it doesn't mean we don't pray like the way I talked about praying, from this reality of oneness and deep meditation and sending vibrational frequencies of love and peace and joy and healing and wholeness and abundance. Like, it doesn't mean we don't do that, and it doesn't mean we use the excuse of, oh, it's just whatever, because even that, like that mentality is in a way, like moving past, or it's ignoring like the human experience. And like the human experience is like, hey, no, I'm going to pray for whatever I want to pray for, and I'm going to pray as much as I want to pray, because I mean, like, I don't know. And that's the thing. In our finite, limited minds, we don't know. So that's why I keep saying, I think the best approach, regardless of whether or not what we're praying for is something that is supposed to happen or not happen, you pray, you send your love, you send your positive vibes towards that situation, towards that person, towards yourself, whatever it is, and you trust that whatever happens, this is part of the journey. It's part of the ride. It's part of the game. It's part of what was necessary to be experienced. It's part of what we signed up for. It's part of the soul's evolution, and you leave it at that. When you can detach from needing to figure it all out and having to like know the why behind every little thing, this is going to drastically decrease your suffering in this life, because so much of the suffering we experience comes from being attached to the why, and like being angry with things that happen. And that's totally fine. Like if you experience like emotions like anger during situations where you prayed for something and it didn't happen, like that's totally normal and human to feel angry. But let the anger run its course, and don't remain angry for the rest of your life, because again, that's not going to get you anywhere, and it's only going to increase the suffering. So when you can get to a place of surrender and letting go, you'll be free, and you can start to trust again, which is huge. And just know that, yeah, like it's all going to work out. All shall be well. That's the good news. That's the ultimate gospel, is that all shall be well. This is a temporary human experience. This earth is not our eternal home by any means. This is just a school that we come here. The souls incarnate here to learn. And while we're here, we be fully human, because this is what the incarnation is all about. And when we can change things, or it's the appearance of changing things, the thing is, like, the control, let me put it this way. If you're going to pray for someone, if you're going to manifest something and it actually happens, it was supposed to be that way. I think to a degree. I think when we get into like free will and determinism, it's like what we're calling free will is actually just, or no, I'll say it like this. The destiny is the free will of the higher self. So the higher self like has chosen how things are going to go and how things are going to unfold. And then we come into this human game, this incarnation, and there's this appearance of, oh, I'm free to choose this and choose that. But ultimately it's like it's already been chosen. We didn't, like in the movie The Matrix, when Neo is talking to the Oracle, and she says, hey, like, you want some candy or something, and he says something like, well, don't you already know what I'm gonna choose? Like, you're the Oracle, like, why would you even ask? And she's like, well, you didn't come here to figure out, you didn't come here to choose. You came here to figure out why you chose it. Something like that, So it's kind of like that, I think, where the free will is somehow connected to the higher self that's beyond time, and we're like experiencing the free will of the higher self unfold, and we think it's like the small self. We think it's the ego that's like independently choosing things and experiencing things. But I think on a deeper level, when you actually start to like experience the essence of your being beyond the ego, something within you knows intuitively on that deeper level that there really is no doer. There really is no like separate egoic mind that is totally independently choosing these things. And there's now like, that's that's part of the illusion. That's part of the game. If you want to think like that, if you want to believe like that, by all means go for it. And that's why I always say, like, whether or not there's ultimately free will or not on the level of the ego, while we're experiencing the ego, while we're experiencing the human incarnation, yeah, like pretend like there is free will, live like there is free will. But don't get attached to it. Don't get caught up in thinking that this is the ultimate. Like, relax and know that there is a higher flow, a higher source, a higher self that is fundamentally you at the deeper level, at the deepest level, that has already decided and chosen the path for your soul's curriculum, for your soul's evolution. And you are simply living it out. You're experiencing it firsthand. But like, be relieved from that pressure of like, oh, if I don't choose this, so it's like, relax. You didn't come here to choose. You came here to figure out why you chose what you chose so that you could learn and grow and evolve. That's what the incarnation experience is all about. So, yeah, I hope this kind of answered your question, if you even had the question about prayer. Like I said, I get this question often, and I just felt like it was time to make a video about it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments and questions, and whether or not you agree or disagree. So please leave all of that in the comment section below. And that's it. I'll see you next time.